This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with emergency ordinance number 20-A16. An emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. Committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, let's see, Gina Kelly,
Yes, present.
Dottie,
Here.
Neil,
Yep.
Paula,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
myself. Betsy will be coming later, I'm sure. Carolyn Schaefer and Tori Kanopoulos. Tori, are you there?
Yep, I am.
Okay. The person responsible for receiving public comment on the Village of Rivanna Community Advisory Committee. The opportunities for the public to assess and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. To start the meeting, have you reviewed the meeting minutes? And are there any corrections at this time?
No corrections.
Okay, if there are no corrections, I need a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
I need a
Second.
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 All in favor, say aye.
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 Minutes are passed.
Tori, I'll send them to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
The first item on the agenda is a master plan review. Now, these are going to be the ground rules for doing this. We're going to discuss this for 45 minutes. If we don't finish then, we'll continue discussing the first 7 pages in our next month meeting. I'm going to call on you in alphabetical order. And since you have already submitted what you think your changes should be for the first 7 pages, you're going to read them and we're going to discuss them and then decide what we're going to put into the corrections. So the first person is Betsy, who's not here. We're going to go to Gina. So Gina, you've got a number of comments, but none of the comments have been in the form of actual corrections or restating of what's in there.
Right. And basically, because I think the whole thing is so far off reality that it isn't worth commenting on, that we should
Okay.
start again.
State your case.
I've only been here full-time a little less than 10 years. The difference in this area, it's night and day. The traffic, the noise is unspeakable. We just keep cutting down all the trees, developing. And if what we're seeing in Rivanna Village is considered low density, then God help us, because the higher density, I can't even imagine what that's going to look like. The traffic in and out of Glenmore, as you know, is insane. And water pressure's been lowered. I mean, where does this stop? So that was my reaction to this. I mean, retaining its low density character, what character for our subdivision, for example? It's gone.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but in going over the master plan, what we're dealing with right now is vision as written in the master plan. So what we have to do is go down sentence by sentence
Mhm.
in the vision and saying specifically what we don't think is prevalent or up to date right now, and then substitute what language we think should be in there. So what you're talking about is general feelings about it. What I'm talking about is what would we do if we had to actually rewrite the master plan? The master plan is going to be updated. It was updated last in 2015. And we substituted as a committee language which we thought was more up to date. And that's what we're doing tonight. So we'll take into account what you said, but what I need is language that we think we substitute. For example, the first point is residential uses will be the most prominent use in the development area. I don't think anybody has objection to that.
No, but it doesn't really define low density.
So what would you substitute? What language would you substitute?
I just don't know. I mean, I'm still back on the first line of vision. Was this actually developed by the people who live around here?
Yes, absolutely. In 2015,
Objection.
I'm shocked.
it certainly was. There were 100 people present when the original master plan was developed in 2010. There were 4 different sessions in which we developed it with guidance from the county. And all of these things that are in the master plan was what was decided by the citizens that were present in the development. Neil, do you have anything to say?
I don't really think that the master plan was developed. I mean, I think the sentence developed by citizens within the village, the vision, I mean, maybe the vision was developed by citizens within
That's
the
what we're
village.
talking about now.
I don't think the master plan was developed by citizens. I mean,
Well,
there was some input certainly, but it was hardly unique, only the citizens of the village.
but we're talking about the vision right now. You agree
Yeah.
the vision was developed by the citizens?
Maybe, I mean, it was probably, the staff probably came up with this really. but,
Let's say it wasn't developed by the citizens. What kind of vision, what kind of vision would you have, which is different from this?
Who are you asking?
You, because you say it wasn't developed, it may have not been developed by the citizens. So what kind of vision, if it
Well,
wasn't
that's
developed
a
by-
different question. That's a question of whether the citizens agree with it,
What we're talking about is the language that's in the vision. You object to the fact, apparently, and Gina, that it was developed by the citizens within the vision. Within the village, sorry.
Dennis, could I just say, all right, let's go down to existing neighborhoods of the Glenmore Development, Running Deer and Magruder subdivision. I would consider this whole section of town the Magruder subdivision. What does the county consider the Magruder subdivision?
Where are you?
I'm in the old Glenmore house.
No, I know that. Where are you?
0.4 under residential use.
Okay,
on
thank you.
residential uses, it's 0.4.
Oh, thank you.
So to retain their low density character, well, that obviously isn't happening.
Why?
Well,
Why isn't it
why?
happening?
Rivanna Village and Breezy Hill. There's nothing low density in character about those.
Rivanna Village was developed before the master plan, Gina. There was no master plan when Rivanna Village was developed. Rivanna Village was developed before there was a master plan. We
The
objected to
third
that.
reiteration of that, I guess, was approved, unfortunately.
Well,
Before
we
we
object-
came, we
right.
missed it.
And we objected to that. We told the county that the master plan should be developed before Rivanna Village was approved.
Yep.
They did not agree. Rivanna
Okay.
Village does not comply with the master plan. I agree.
Okay. And then if we go down, let's see, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Future development is expected to be at a size and scale compatible with existing neighborhoods within the village of Rivanna. So is that village of Rivanna our whole section?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. So then again, I would say those developments are not on that scale, but they might be on the scale of the most dense part of Glenmore.
let's, to be clear, Rivanna Village was approved by the county. There'd be 4 to 6 units per acre. And it was per gross acre at the time.
Mhm.
After that, and after our revision in 2015, there was no more development till Breezy Hill. Breezy Hill was the first opportunity that came up for us to use our master plan. And Breezy Hill was originally, as you know, more than 2 units per acre. It was eventually approved at 1 unit per acre. We objected because it was 1 unit per gross acre. But there was an anomaly in our master plan, which did not prevent that interpretation. So the master plan was used. It was not completely complied with. There were inconsistencies in the master plan, and that's why we're here tonight, to examine our master plan and to see if we can make it more consistent. Anybody have any comments on that?
Actually, I think Breezy Hill that was approved with 80 units, I think it's on like 60 some acres or something. I mean, it's more than 1 unit per acre.
It's 1.4 actually.
Yeah.
And so what the county looks at, if it's 1.4, it's 1. But regardless of that, I agree with you that it was not approved on the basis of net acres, which is in the comprehensive plan. And the master plan is part of the comprehensive plan. And the land use map showed 1 unit per acre because it eliminated all the available acreage that was not to be developed on and it could not to be counted on. But that's gone. I mean, that was approved, that's passed. I don't agree with it, but that's what the Board of Supervisors did. So now we're looking at the future. And again, we're looking at how we would frame this master plan now in terms of rewriting it. So, Dottie?
Betsy typed the whole 7 pages. Actually, it's 4 pages. And then she edited what she would change and blah, blah, blah. And I basically worked off of hers because it was there and it was easy to do. And I agree with a lot of the stuff that she had to say. And you all got a copy. She sent it to
Yes, I have.
everybody.
Somewhere.
So, pardon?
Somewhere.
Oh, well,
It's a real good start.
yeah, as far as the vision, she basically rewrote the vision using slightly different words, nothing major. She did take out, which I agree with, the village will have medium and low density residential neighborhoods. She took out, will have easy access to the village center through multiple modes of travel. The community will preserve historic features, that historic features left in, but the modes of travel, she took out that whole sentence. And she took out the last part and focus commercial activity within the village center. She took that out too. I think we all know that there may or may not be commercial center because he can't find people to
Start a business here.
rent the space, lease the space, which is his issue, not ours.
Let's look at what Betsy actually wrote. The first sentence, if you go up to vision, says developed by citizens within the village. The vision for the village of Rivanna is for a distinct small community surrounded by rural Albemarle. Betsy changed this to the village of Rivanna master plan prepared by village residents and planning staff working together will set forth development guidelines for a distinct small community surrounded by rural areas in Albemarle County. Does anyone have objection to that sentence?
Me.
Go
And
ahead.
just a small thing.
Okay,
It's not just the village residents, because those of us around the village are also very interested in how this happens, how this is worked out.
mhm.
So if we could add like village and area residents and planning staff. That would be
Okay.
helpful.
Surrounding area.
Good idea.
Anybody objection to that?
No.
Okay. She goes further and says that the second sentence says a medium and low density residential neighborhood. What the existing verbiage says is that medium and low density residential neighborhoods will have easy access to the village center to multiple modes of travel. Betsy says the village will have medium and low density neighborhoods. Historic features will be preserved and parks will be provided for recreation. She is eliminating multiple modes of travel. Discussion?
I agree with it.
Not necessary.
Anybody object?
I have a feeling that the county's staff is gonna want to not have it this way.
I don't care what the county thinks at this point.
Yeah.
We're doing what we want to do.
So what is it that we are doing? We're like making we're making a version that our committee thinks would be a good starting point for discussion or something like that?
Yes,
Let's say we do nothing. Let's say we wait for the master plan revision to come up and the county deals with it, with us. Do we want to do that? Or do we want to discuss this as a committee first and agree on what we want to see? So that when the county comes in and says there's a revision that we're going to have, we have our version. In 2015, that is exactly what we did. Jane Dittmar said, your update is now due, and we came up with verbiage. Remember, Neil, we came up with verbiage not only on the master plan, but on the comprehensive plan, which was also up for revision in 2015. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get ahead of the game, decide what we want to do as a committee. The other thing I'm trying to do is to get us more familiar as a committee with what is in the master plan. Remember, our master plan as derived in 2010 and 2015 has inconsistencies in it, which we have to deal with. So that is why we're here.
I think that, I don't argue with you on that. I think it's great. But we do need to remember that our primary function here is as like or one of our primary functions here is like as a liaison between the community and the county on this kind of stuff. And,
Right.
What we really need is to get community input, and so this is very provisional. This is a tentative document. It's just something we're starting with, which will be discussed by the community at large and all.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Our task will be, after we do all of this, is to get the community involved, to present to the community what the master plan was and what we intended to be. That will be very difficult because getting community involvement has been very difficult. Hopefully, by that time, we will not be operating with Zoom. We can get a community meeting, we can present it. And that will have to be a series of meetings. Hopefully, also, the county will decide to have people involved in the change, in the revisions, and we'll have full-scale meetings. I don't know if that's going to happen. I do know that we are charged with protecting the master plan and dealing with it. So I think it's entirely appropriate that we have these meetings now and put in what we think we should do, because we have been the people most involved in it. The community has not been really involved in it. I would welcome the community to be involved in it, but that's been difficult so far, as you know. So
So on the matter of, where Betsy's taken out, we'll have easy access to the village center through multiple modes of travel. You know, I know Glenmore is a gated community and Glenmore doesn't want interconnections, but, we're also supposed to be a village. Now, I mean, I am certainly recognize that we're not a village, the county calls it a village. We don't meet the county's definition of a village, and we don't meet the standard English language definition of a village. So I don't know. I mean,
I think you're right.
I frankly don't see how the Breezy Hill thing is ever going to be connected through multiple modes of travel to the village center. And it doesn't look like there's going to be much commercial stuff in the village center. There's a park. I mean, I'm not sure what people are going to go there for,
I think you're right on all accounts. And so what Betsy is proposing is something that's real life. She's saying, look, you're not going to go through Glenmore, and you're not going to go through Neil Mean's backyard.
That's right.
So she is eliminating that.
Yeah.
Well, and the multiple modes of travel comment makes it sound like the county is going to provide that. So I think that, people will use the modes of travel that they choose. If you ride a bike, you'll ride your bike. If you drive your car, you'll drive your car or ride your skateboard. This makes it sound like modes of travel will be provided.
You're saying Betsy's change or how it's written?
How it's written, I think that needs to be taken out. I mean, you're stating the obvious and causing confusion by putting that in.
That's what Betsy's change is. It's
Right.
eliminating
Yes,
that.
take that out.
Supporting that. I'm
Yes.
supporting Betsy's change.
Anyone else have comments? Linda? Jenna?
I'm good with Betsy's changes in that first paragraph, as long as we add that phrase about
Right.
including the whole
Yeah.
area.
Yes,
Yeah, I have
surrounding
that. I
area,
have that down.
surrounding residents or some such.
Right.
Right.
Jenna, do you have a comment?
and
I
other
just
residents.
wanted to mention that we were walking in the Rivanna Village yesterday, and there are multiple paths you can go on. I can see how they would connect to Running Deer. However, if there are
No.
multiple modes of transportation, well, I would agree, but I can see how that's being planned out. But in terms of multiple modes of transportation, those roads are not that narrow. Let's hope they're not going to put bike lanes in too, because then it's going to get quite dangerous.
So you
I-
agree with the way Betsy's
Yes,
change is written?
yes,
She's eliminating. She's saying the village will have medium and low density residential neighborhoods. Historic, she's eliminating the next phrase, which says we'll have easy access to the village center to multiple modes of travel. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
And it says historic, she changes the next sentence to say historic features will be preserved and open spaces and parks will be provided for recreation. Yes, there's a planned county park in Rivanna Village, which is 18 acres. And so that's accurate.
Correct.
I need, who agrees with what Betsy, I need a vote of hands. Who agrees with what Betsy's put down in that sentence? All in favor?
I,
Okay. Okay, we agree. The next thing she says is the Village of Rivanna Master Plan is intended to provide guidance on where and how new residential and non-residential uses should be. And she changes, it should be developed in the Village of Rivanna. It doesn't presently say that. It says the Village of Rivanna Master Plan is intended to provide guidance on where and how new residential and non-residential units should develop in the Village of Rivanna development area. She says should be developed in the Village of Rivanna. That's a minor change I have no problem with that. Anybody have a problem with that?
No, it's less confusing than as written.
She also says it is further intended to make recommendations about necessary improvements to US 250 East that borders the development area on the north. It presently says it is further intended to make recommendations on the future of US 250 East across the northern boundary of the development area. So she's cleaning it up a little. It's a minor.
Yeah.
Okay. She then goes down, when you go down to residential uses, a mixture of housing types. When it says a mixture of housing types will be provided with the greatest variety of types being in the village center, she changes that to the greatest variety of types to be located in the village center. It's a minor change. I would not have an objection to that. Anybody have an objection?
No.
No,
No.
okay. The next sentence is existing neighborhoods. In the Glenmore development, Running Deer, she changes to on Running Deer Drive and in the Magruder subdivision. Again, it's a minor change. It's a typographical change. I have no objection. Does anyone have an objection?
Dennis, I don't have an objection, but please explain to me, what is the Magruder subdivision?
It's that,
Magruder subdivision is a small development off of 250, just north of where Rivanna Village is now.
Pine something road.
I don't know
Okay, there
how
are
many
like 8
homes are.
mailboxes.
Yeah, well, they have, there's a road which goes off into Magruder.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we need to define low density character?
Low density,
Do we need to do that right now, right here?
do you think so?
Well,
That
density
would make it
is a
easier.
big problem. We've come, look at the whole staff has gone to sleep on us.
Is-
They don't
They
want us
don't want this
working on
discussed.
something else. I don't blame them.
Is
No,
low,
I think low density needs to be, we're talking about it already. How far does it go before it's actually
do you
defined?
think the county defines low density?
I don't know, but that seems to be a problem.
Well, you know, in the way it's worded, expected to retain their low density character. And there are these specific neighborhoods, Glenmore, Running Deer, Magruder subdivision. That seems to define it. You know, it's whatever they are at the date of this, you know, document.
Right.
Good
Right.
point.
They're all different, aren't they? Different?
I might add the word rural, retain their rural low density character, because I think part of the problem we're running into is somebody has a vision for this to be this cutesy little town and connect everything, and they're taking people who are used to living in a rural area, some people with not even seeing neighbors, some people with neighbors very close, and trying to create a compatibility of people who are completely different, enjoying completely different lifestyles.
I think when you get into low density and rural, you're getting into different definitions. The rural area is defined differently than low density.
I'm saying this is in addition to the low density. These are rural low density.
But we are in the development area. There is no rural.
Well, not Running Deer. Well, some of it's in the, some of it's in
Yes,
the-
but that's not in the development area.
We're still rural. The whole village of Rivanna area
No.
is
No,
rural.
it's
No.
not. We're not
It was
rural.
changed. That's the problem.
It's a
We're
growth
not
area.
rural. But
It's a
that's,
growth area, but it's got a rural character.
rural is defined as
not
being
anymore.
outside the development area. Development area are the area as a 5% of land that's available for development. Rural area is outside of that. That's a 95%.
But it's located in the middle of a rural area.
Yes.
There
No, it
aren't
isn't.
shopping centers right by us.
I think that would be very confusing myself, but I'm willing to hear from everybody else.
I guess this, in this sentence here, in the existing master
Neighbor.
plan and in the Betsy's version, it's talking about existing neighborhoods on Running Deer Drive. I guess they're talking about the part of Running Deer Drive, the western side that is in
One
the
side.
development area, I guess is what they're talking about there.
Except that it's the same density on both sides. We all
Right,
have
but this is
2 acre
not-
lots.
But this is not talking about the rest of it. That's in the rural area. It's not supposed to get developed.
The fact that there's 1 acre lots, Linda, does not include the area on the east side of Running Deer.
Yes,
It only includes the
They all-
area on the west, in the development area. Anything that
Wait.
applies,
I'm on the east side.
yes,
Okay,
doesn't.
we
apply
all
to you.
have 2 acre lots.
Yes,
People on the west side also have 2 acre lots.
fine.
There's
But,
no difference.
but you're not in the development area.
No, thank God.
So this
they
is
are.
talking, this master plan is talking about the development area,
Yeah.
not about the other part.
So it doesn't apply to you, Linda.
Uh, I know it doesn't apply, but it certainly affects. This whole thing affects us.
And it's a development area within a rural setting. Maybe that's more what I'm trying to communicate.
But I guess that's, Dennis, what I was asking. How did this happen that the county just designated our little section to be the 5%, that they were going to change it, and they did, from rural to high density?
Well,
They
you
were
have
just-
It's a long
just
story.
lucky.
you have to
yeah.
go back to
Let me
1971.
unmute myself and I can.
Oh,
provide-
hello, Betsy.
Hi, Dennis.
We've just changed everything you wrote down.
Gee, you look like you're under.
Oh, we did. We thought it was great.
We changed very little, very few things. And I want to thank you for sending that.
Answer the question of how this became a development area, smack in the middle of rural surroundings. Frank Kessler needed to offer something to the county in addition to, or, in gratitude or whatever, for running the water lines out here. And so he proposed that this be part of the development areas, and in return, he got services that he otherwise wouldn't have gotten. So it's basically a trade-off.
And on the
He
big,
got the water, he got the development area.
Frank,
He got the
Frank
development-
Kessler
A
bought,
backroom deal.
Frank Kessler bought the Glenmore Farm, which was like maybe 1,000 acres approximately at the time. And he wanted to develop it. And in order to develop it, it needed to be in a development area because that's the way the county was doing things. So he talked him into making it a village, which they had a category for village, but they didn't have any villages. And someone at the county, and we don't really know why, decided that the boundaries would be what they are now. I remember Frank Kessler saying at a planning commission work session or something, we were saying, why does the rest of this place have to be in it? Why can't it just be Glenmore? Why can't the village just be Glenmore? And he said it was okay with him if it just be Glenmore, but the county decided to make it go on to Running Deer Drive, the center of Running Deer Drive. And I think it's because of the sewer can run downhill from there. The plumbing rules that hot on the left, cold on the right, and poop goes downhill, runs downhill. So, I think that's the drainage area, basically. That was
Having said that, yesterday also on our walk, I noticed almost everywhere we were walking, it's all septic. In the village of, in Rivanna Village.
Well,
What are
yeah,
all these? little-
they've got, if you have the money, you could connect to the sewer system. And when
Yeah,
places
so-
are developed, they will, but the existing places can't afford it.
the other economic development aspect of the growth areas too is that the county needs to provide more housing. And so they decided rather than let the rural area just go helter-skelter. They'd condense growth into limited areas, smaller quantities, dense areas, so as to preserve the rural nature of the greater part of the county. So you get these little pockets of growth, which they might be changing their mind very soon from what I've been reading to a whole different plan.
That would be good. There doesn't seem to be any growth in the UVA part of town.
Well,
And all that UVA owns, no growth over there.
It's already packed.
No, a lot of it isn't. UVA owns an awful lot of land.
They sure do.
Let's review,
Well, that's
go
the
back,
city and we're talking about the county.
let's review and go back to the sentences of Betsy's submission that we're talking about. Let's go back to existing neighborhoods in the development, in the Glenmore development on Running Deer Drive, and then the Magruder subdivision are expected to retain their low density character. Okay, we agree that that's not going to change. We're going to agree on Betsy's changes. The Glenmore development is expected to remain unchanged. That is true because there's no more land that can be developed in Glenmore. It's all developed. And now we go down to developed land on the east side. Pardon
Is
me?
it, I guess, is there no possibility that some area bordering Glenmore could, be bought by some developer and somehow be absorbed into Glenmore?
No.
No,
Like annex?
Yeah, because,
Annex.
I mean,
Well,
it used-
no, you can't annex. You can't, well, first of all, if you buy more land, you have to submit a ZMA. You have to go through the entire deal. But what you're talking about, when you go into that area, I think you're talking about you're backing on Limestone Creek in Limestone.
well, there's, for example, there's the area, between Breezy Hill and Glenmore. There's some relatively undeveloped land in there. There's, the Ashton Road places, stuff like that. At one time that I could have seen how that might have been absorbed into Glenmore. We don't have a developer controlling Glenmore anymore. It's controlled by the Glenmore Community Association. I suppose you all are ruling that out. Is that?
the Community Association Board of Directors voted 3-4 years ago. They defined the boundaries of Glenmore as they are now, and they will stay that way and will not be changed.
Okay, in that case, let's go with Betsy's, taking this thing out of here.
Taking these things out of here, what do you mean?
Where's the section, let's say, that we're talking about here?
It
Except
says
for,
if
it
Glenmore
used to say, except for orderly future expansion of
Right.
additions approved through rezonings. And where she's taking that out because
Right.
the Glenmore Community Association has, put a stop to any more expansion of Glenmore, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. So I agree with it. Good.
Okay.
With that, yeah.
The developed land on the east side of Carroll Creek will not change in character as it provides for transition to the rural areas.
I think we should take that whole thing out.
Development, well,
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
because there's Breezy Hill.
Well, Breezy Hill doesn't come that far down, does it?
Yeah, it's
No.
on the east
Oh, it
side of
does?
Carroll Creek.
but it doesn't go down to Carroll
But-
Creek.
But this will not, Breezy Hill's already been approved. So
Right.
this will not pertain to Breezy Hill.
Right?
I don't
So-
know.
But there are those couple of parcels that were part of the Breezy Hill development got taken out. They would apply to this. And there are some
Right.
there are places on Hearns Lane and those other places. There are places over there. I think it'd be fine to leave this. I mean, I don't think you want to just abandon this.
Okay, if you mention those,
Yeah.
what do the other people of the committee think? Everybody agree with Neil? Yes or no?
Yes, but
Yes,
I
raise your
also,
hand.
also like to say that when all of us bought our houses, one of the things you were supposed to be told by your real estate agent was that you're in a growth area, with the exception of Linda. I don't know anybody who was told that when they bought
Only
their
was in
house. And with the growth area,
somewhere.
with the growth area, those parcels that you have described, the rest of Breezy Hill and there's some other land back there, I think it's just a matter of time till they're developed, and they will be developed. Because we're in a growth area.
That's probably true.
So what are we saying?
So if it doesn't change in character, it still can be developed. It would just be less dense, right?
Well, I think
Yeah,
you
that's
have to
what I
look at what happened with Breezy Hill. Change in character, we had a lot of change in character with Breezy Hill.
It says to me that developed land will not be more than 1 unit per acre.
That's good.
That's what it says,
Mhm.
because that's what the zoning is now. And they're not changing character. It means that you can't have it, the other land that's undeveloped suddenly be 2 units per acre or 4 units per acre.
I
It would be
suggest,
1 unit per acre. That's what we're saying.
I suggest we add that to spell the language out about the 1 acre.
And can we put in
good idea.
buildable, 1 buildable acre?
Yes.
Well,
Net
you could
acre.
change it to, instead of in character, you could say in zoning.
Well, right now, that land is, you know,
One
R2,
unit.
what do you call it, 2 acre, you know, R2, whatever that zoning is.
No, right now it's R1.
No, it's not the land that's not in Breezy Hill.
The land in Breezy Hill is R1.
Right, I'm
Well,
talking about the other land.
What we're saying is developed land on the east side is not expected to change in character. We could substitute to future developed land. Future developed land is not expected to change in character, which would mean that future developed land would be no more than R1.
Well, that must be, okay, now I'm getting really
Well,
confused.
Sure.
Future and existing, what's to stop someone from taking it to a
Existing.
4 acre plot and putting a high rise there like they're doing in other parts?
Because well, for a number of reasons. But first of all, Breezy Hill has been approved at R1, okay? That's on the east side of Carroll Creek. So what this sentence says is developed land on the east side of Carroll Creek will not change in character as it provides for a transition to rural areas. We could substitute the language which says developed land will not be more than R1, which is what is already been zoned for on the east side of Carroll Creek, between Running Deer and Carroll Creek. That's all R1 now. It's been approved. If we
No,
don't
it's
want to
not.
change in character, pardon me?
I think this is not, I mean, this is language that was in the existing master plan. So this is not talking about, you know, Breezy Hill as we think of it today, having been approved. This is talking about, you know, I think that this is talking about future land, you know, developed
I'm
land,
talking about.
or land that has houses on it now, but that's R2. It's not R1 now.
It's
And I don't
R2.
think,
It's R1.
I don't think we ought to, you know,
Neil, I don't agree
jump
with
to the
you.
conclusion that it should be R2, R1.
Neil, I don't agree with you. East of Carroll Creek, it's R1. It's not R2. East of Carroll Creek is Breezy Hill. West of Carroll Creek. is
Only
Rivanna Village.
part of east of Cow Creek is Breezy Hill.
I know, and it's saying developed land will not change in character as it provides for transition to rural areas. I'm saying, I'm substitute, put in, instead of developed land, put future developed land. Future on the east side of Carroll Creek. So that accounts for the other plots that are not presently sold.
Okay, but it's not currently R1. So.
No, it isn't.
You know, it's got, and these places have houses on, And I don't, and this is just the vision section of the thing. I don't think you want to put in here that it's going to be rezoned R1 in this
What would you
section of
put?
the,
What would you put, Neil?
you know, I think you could say it's not expect or will not change in character.
Will not change in character is a very nebulous comment.
Right,
It
and this is a
doesn't-
vision.
It doesn't mean anything, really.
Right, and this is a vision, which doesn't mean anything.
And so it should say, more specifically, you could say it will retain the same zoning as the existing development in the area. Or you
I
can
don't-
say it will be R1.
I don't think this is talking about zoning per se. This is talking about character. It's vision and it's talking about character, which is, you know, a more nebulous term, true, but that's what it is.
Isn't
It's
character
vision.
defined by zoning?
Well, certainly zoning impacts character, but I think later on in the document, we get to things like what density might be in what areas. You know, this is strictly the vision, you know, the introductory paragraph, you know, section of the plan here.
So let me understand, you're suggesting that the language not be changed as written down.
I'm saying it could be either way it was written down or the way Betsy wrote it down.
Could we add the word ideally?
No.
Should not change in character?
No, no, no,
No?
no, no, no,
Betsy,
please.
what did you
That means
mean?
Totally nothing.
Betsy, what did you
Ideally
mean?
means nothing.
What did you mean when you put the language in there?
I'm
When
sorry,
you put the
Dennis.
What did you mean when you just changed, when you took out it's not expected and you put in will not? What was your
Well, what
intent?
I meant was, let's have a definitive statement because not expected. That's kind of vague. I
Right.
don't expect a lot of things and
And you-
they happen anyway.
I understand. When you said will not, what did you expect? that
What
the
I meant
undeveloped-
was, here's a definitive statement, will not.
What did you expect? Let me say something. What did you expect that the undeveloped lots, which would be purchased by someone else who wanted to develop them, what did you expect this sentence would restrict them to?
I expected that it would be be restricted to what is.
So that's R1.
It's not R1.
It
Well-
is R1.
It is not R1.
What is not R1?
The
Breezy Hill
The
is R1.
properties on the east side of Carroll Creek, between Carroll Creek and Running Deer, which are not part of the Breezy Hill zoning thing, they are still R2.
Neil, we are
R2
talking
means
across
two
purposes.
units per.
I'm saying that Breezy Hills has been approved as R1. Breezy Hill has been approved as R1. There are undeveloped lots. If
And
we are-
developed lots
Pardon me?
and lots with houses on them.
Well, here's the thing. The lots that we're talking about have by right approval. And honestly, we don't know exactly what that is on all of these parcels.
Some developer goes and buys the lots that are now undeveloped. That developer decides to put in apply for R4, okay? What do we want the language in the master plan to do to prevent that developer, to suggest that that developer not do that and retain the original character, which is now R1?
What you want to do is be as
It's-
definitive as possible, because if you open the door with ideally or should be, et cetera, or so forth, you just throw it away.
I agree.
I think you remember when we were talking about Breezy Hill, when Breezy Hill application was going on, we were trying to make sure that the areas between Breezy Hill and Running Deer, were not densely developed. We wanted them to retain the character they have now. The character they have now they're not zoned R1, they're zoned R2. or, rural agricultural, RA, or whatever it's called, which is 2 acres for a house using unit of housing. That's what they are now. And that's what I would like to see them retain.
That's not gonna be, that's fine, but that's not real life. Because
I'd like
that's
to
how
ask
Breezy
Laura
Hill
for a
was.
Definition of R2, because my understanding of R2 is 2 units per acre.
Well,
R3
I think what the zoning is over there now,
R1 is
the part
1.
that's not Breezy Hill is RA, which is
You're
Okay,
right.
rural agriculture.
residential agricultural or something
It
like
is
that.
all right.
And, you can
That's
have
different
a
from
house, you have to have 2 acres for a house,
You're
basically.
right, Neil. It is RA.
Okay,
But
that's all right.
in real life, when a developer buys the land, he's going to submit a ZMA. And the ZMA is going to ask for a certain density. And so RA is going to be out of the picture and consideration. And what we're talking about is whether we want the final approved ZMA, which is going to come, to be R1, R2, R4. It won't be RA. It will not be RA. I guarantee you won't, because the ZMA is going to be considered. And I think ideally, the best we could get is that the additional acreage will be R1. And that's what I thought Betsy's language was headed towards.
What? I think that this is the vision section of the master plan, and that, we're not talking about specific zonings here. And I don't think we ought to get into it at this point. And I think what we're talking about is we want the rural character to be maintained so that it is less dense than like Breezy Hill, so that it transitions to the rural area rather than, having a sharp cutoff.
I think we get in trouble when we go further into the master plan and what we say in there doesn't agree with the vision, as you say. But when we get to practicalities, the whole rest of the area, the 80 houses that are going to be built there are all going to be R1. That's a reality. And
Well,
so
not really. They're on smaller than acre lots.
the average will be R1, Neil. You know that.
Well, there's actually less than 80 acres there.
There'll be 85 houses on 80 acres, Neil. Come on.
So,
It's
look.
zoned for R1.
So
Yeah,
I'm
so-
saying I'm fine with the language, the way Betsy's written it or the way it was in there. Well, how are we doing on time for the other things we were going to discuss
I'm
tonight?
trying to move on,
Okay.
actually. So when we get to the last sentence, which says future residential development between the village center and Carroll Creek will transition to the highest density near the center to no more than 1 unit. I disagree with that. It's already zoned. It's already zoned as part of Rivanna Village.
Well, I think this is talking about, whichever area A, whatever area I'm living, my land. I think that's what they were talking about here, aren't we?
No,
Everybody in the village.
it's between the village center and Carroll Creek. That's on the west side
Right.
of Carroll Creek. That is
Right.
part of Rivanna Village. It's already zoned.
I don't think so.
Oh, really? That's their second phase.
No.
Yes, it is.
The Rivanna Village has already been approved. It's not really part of this master plan at all. What this is talking about is between Rivanna Village and Carroll's Creek.
Doesn't say that. It says the village center.
That's between.
But the village center is another word for Rivanna Village.
No, it isn't.
No,
Village center
That's
is where
part of
commercial
Rivanna
areas.
Village that is most densely developed, and then it just kind of, fortunately, it gets a little less dense as it spreads out, or supposed to.
instead of village center, it should say Rivanna Village.
Well, it's, at some point it says that Rivanna Village is the village center and somewhere in this dang.
No, it doesn't. It says future residential development between the village center and Carroll Creek. It should say, in terms of what Betsy means, I believe, is that it should be between Rivanna Village and Carroll
Yes.
Creek. That would include all the properties that are not in Rivanna Village and west of Carroll Creek.
That's
May I
not the only place they use village center. Maybe we need to define that.
Well, village center, as defined, is the commercial area.
I don't know.
Rivanna Village is what was approved. That's the development that was approved. It should speak of a Rivanna Village and the boundaries of it, and then going to the individual properties going to Carroll Creek.
So add the word development, because I find this very ambiguous too, that we're known as the village of Rivanna, we're also Scottsville. It's all very confusing. So it should say of the development, Rivanna Village Center.
You know,
Betsy?
initially, when Rivanna Village was first approved, there was a commercial center.
Yes,
Yes,
and you're saying,
And then
you're
just
talking
got
about
that
commercial
approved.
center as being village center.
of the development.
The words village center, Betsy, means a commercial center, doesn't it?
Right, and the first approval for Rivanna Village did in fact have a commercial center.
But I think you mean for the highest density near the center.
Right, and then,
But that's
Density
all
is
4 to
right
6
out.
units. Near the center, that's all 4 to 6 units per
That's right.
acre. It doesn't say in the approval for Rivanna Village that it will transition.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Now that I think we all understand where you're headed a little bit better, and we have the ability to work 2 people, I suggest that we split into teams of 2 people and tackle this where you've got somebody to bounce your ideas off of, and between the 2 of you, you come up with one submission, and then we come together and discuss those.
teams of 2 people. So what do other members of the committee think of that?
I think we should continue as we are.
I do too.
It's we split into 2, we're gonna come back and then we're gonna have the same discussion that we're having now, but we'll have it later.
Yeah.
And as far as this sentence that we're discussing, seems like you're going round and round about the same thing. Future residential development between, instead of the village center, just put between Rivanna Village and Carroll Creek.
That's important because when you get out of Rivanna Village and you look at the zoning, it's zoned 2 units per acre. Not 1, it's zoned 2 units per acre past Rivanna Village and before Carroll Creek. From the west side of Carroll Creek to Rivanna Village, if you look at the land use map, is zoned, it is not zoned, it's designated as 2 units per acre.
Whoa.
That's right to transition. It goes from 4 to 6 to 2 to 1.
Learning something
So
else.
Neil,
Didn't know
your
that.
area, Neil, is designated as 2 units per acre. Look at the land use map, you'll see it.
Yeah, no, I am looking, I'm trying to read it.
Trust me.
But anyway, I think that the village of Rivanna Village and the village center are used interchangeably in this document.
They're not. Believe me, there's a distinction. You got to be very precise.
So what is the village center then?
The village center is a part of Rivanna Village that is a commercial center. That is,
Well, it definitely does say that the public park is part of the village center.
and because that's right next to the commercial area. But there is land beyond that.
Well, then why don't we say future development, residential development between
I would just say
the
Rivanna
commercial
Village.
area?
When
of
you take
Rivanna
all of
Village.
Rivanna Village, which is already zoned. It's already zoned. That's where you want your transition to occur. And
Donna, you had mentioned that before. I think it's good wording.
what you're essentially saying is the area that Neil lives in and all of the other 94 or 100 acres that are not presently accounted for will be 1 unit per acre instead of 2 in future considerations.
You know,
That's
I'm gonna throw another clink in here with all the research that I've been
Why
doing
not?
on the missing middle. And reading in the newspaper this morning, the model that Charlottesville is going towards and some things that I've read about our county, and they may be headed the same direction, doing away with R1, R2, et cetera, as far as residential, moving to something called general residential, medium intensity residential, high intensity residential. There will be no 1 per acre. They're called units. They're like existing lots, and the lowest is up to 3. They've done away with all zoning, and they're redefining and restructuring zoning. So if we get specific in talking about R1 and R2 and assume that it's going to be zoned that way forevermore into perpetuity, I think we're being misled.
Well, I will say to that, that's their intention. I don't know that it's not law. I don't know that will ever be law. What we're involved in is our master plan.
I
And
agree, but I'm
imagine-
just suggesting stay away from specifying R1, R2 right now, because that could make the whole thing defunct before we even,
We're not, we're
Get
saying
it all
no
on
more than
paper.
1 unit per acre.
Don't call it R1.
We're not mentioning R1, R2. I think the county will recognize that we're at the end of the county. I don't think they intend to put missing middle in the midst of Village Rivanna, although Betsy, I think, has expressed counter views. We don't know that. We can debate that forever. I'm just trying to move along. We have a sentence here in Betsy's submission, and we want to know whether we want to accept it the way she has it or substitute Village Rivanna for Village Center. That's all I'm saying. What do you think?
Village center.
village center.
You all think Village Center instead of Village of Rivanna?
Not Village of Rivanna.
I mean,
Village.
Rivanna Village, sorry. God. Instead of Village, Dot wants Village Center instead of Rivanna Village.
Well, Rivanna Village is big.
Rivanna Village is a development.
Well, I know, but it's huge. So
I
what part of that are you talking about as opposed to the village center, which is more, and I think a more accurate term.
In this case, what we should do is write in a definition of village center.
Yes.
Okay, that's.
Or don't we want it to say Rivanna Village? Because future residential development between Rivanna Village and Carroll Creek, between all of Rivanna Village as it is zoned already and Carroll Creek. Isn't that what we want to say?
We're talking about the highest density area, correct?
Well, it says that it transitions, will transition from highest density near the center to no more than 3. So that transition's already in there.
All right, well,
But they're saying that the village center is a smaller unit than Rivanna Village.
And will be more dense than anything we have.
So that's fine with me, but we ought to define it, I think.
what do you think, Betsy? You wrote it.
Well, I think the village center is that part of Rivanna Village that is most dense.
Okay,
And then
That makes sense
in
to me.
theory.
Yeah.
I need to
Goes
bring this
down.
to a head, I need a vote. How many are in favor of keeping the language that Betsy has as is? Hands? 1, 2, 3. How many feel that should be changed to Rivanna Village instead of Village of Rivanna? Hands? One, me two. We are missing one person. Linda?
It's me. I think it's okay to say village center, but I think we need to define it.
Okay, we will go back and revisit this later, because we're gonna spend many, many weeks on this, okay? We've gone to Dottie has looked at Betsy's. Neil, you had nothing to contribute, you wanted to comment. Paula, you didn't reply.
I did, but I must have used your wrong email address because you didn't reply back.
I didn't get yours, actually.
I must have sent it to the wrong place. I agree mostly with Betsy with some minor changes. I was busy writing something else that was quite consuming for this group at the time that you requested this. So I've read it and I've thought about it, and I just have a few additions. When we get to them, I'll throw them in.
Do you have those now?
Down at the bottom, future residential development should only be approved. I'm reading the original. I don't want to leave out schools, because making sure that we have school capacity is important, along with transportation, recreation facilities for families. That was the main thing that I saw missing, was the schools.
Where are
It
you?
only talks about mixture of housing types, not schools. This is
On
resident.
the bottom one says, talks about transportation improvements and sufficient sewer capacity.
Oh,
I'd like to add schools into
I guess
that.
I'm in the wrong place.
But bottom of page 5.
Okay, I see it.
I
In
thought
fact,
the sewer capacity was already settled,
Yeah, I think it is.
It
It's
is.
fine.
so we don't need to say that at all.
But then why are the sewers, if Kessler had agreed to this years ago, why are there no sewers in Rivanna Village right now? If this was agreed upon, that he was bringing the lines out here, why are there no
The
sewers?
pump station in Glenmore can handle that.
But it isn't. There are septics at all these houses that
That's
are
Where?
near the road.
That's a
Septic
choice.
and where, Gina?
All these houses that are near the road.
You mean the
as you
brick
come in-
houses?
Well,
to Glenmore Way as you come in Rivanna Village. And you go on that little pathway and you see all the little septic covers for each little nest of houses. Why is it not a sewer?
Is that the houses that are when you're on the path between you and the road?
Yes, and then
Those-
further on too.
Those people had an option and they decided not to. They had an option to hook up if they wanted to.
So will that be the same for this future development too?
no, basically when developers develop something, they spring for hook into the sewer.
You would
Yeah.
think.
Rivanna Village is hooked into the sewer. All the new houses are hooked into the sewer. And all the future development, phase 2, I think it is, they will be also.
And
They are not on
theoretically,
septic.
the older places could be, but it's
Could be.
prohibitively expensive.
Right.
Well, they're not very old. How old are they? 2 years?
Are
You're
you
looking at
talking about the houses in Rivanna Village, new houses?
Yes.
Well, they're supposed to be on the public.
They all have sewer. They
Well,
all
then
have
what are
sewer.
all the little clean out septic-y things in pits behind the houses?
No, they have sewer, Gina.
I wonder what those are then.
I don't know, but they all have sewer.
Might be clean outs for the sewer line that connects to the public sewer.
To each house? It's
Yeah.
very strange.
Yeah. We have them here in Glenmore, down back in the woods.
Okay. Time's getting on, it's 8:11. And our next meeting, we're going to continue with this first 7 pages. And I have no problem because it's going to be a long time before the county gets to it. So we'll have time to review it,
That's fine.
but there are other things we have to do. Let's go to the community education program. Paula, Dottie? Where do you stand?
We have a draft that you've all been sent of the second newsletter. This is a bigger project than one might think because it kind of just goes on. We really would like to have you to be able to refer back to previous newsletters and maybe some other helpful information to people as they hopefully look for more and more information. So in order to do that, we need a Facebook page. So we've prepared a Facebook page so that people can link to that and find previous articles of the newsletter. A statement of the goals for the newsletter is to be able to provide information without opinions. We're not supporting an opinion in the articles that we've written so far. We're just providing a variety of perspectives that are already out there. We're trying to submit facts and be very, factual and supported by those facts. I wanted to know if we needed a disclaimer. On missing middle, as I did the research, I found 3 basic methods that the missing middle is being used here and across the country and in other countries. And so it came to me to write the ors in there, that some uses are to create greater density within the urban ring, to create more housing for those areas that are walkable and accessible to jobs and other amenities. There is another perspective of groups who do not feel that single housing households, neighborhoods should be, that people should have freedom to pretty much live wherever they want in many different ways within one neighborhood or any place.
Try Houston, Texas. You have a beautiful house.
Houston.
Guest,
Oh,
right?
So there's another reason, application that people are using for the missing middle. And then there's another perspective that feels that it's just developers pushing this to be able to cram more houses onto properties to make a greater profit. So those were the 3 major thoughts with regard to missing middle that I came across with extensive reading. And so that's why I put or and or. We're not promoting any one of those ideas. We're just presenting that those are the discussions that are taking place out there with regard to missing middle. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Having a Facebook page then makes us sort of need possibly a logo, or do we just want to use simple lettering? And we also need a photo for the backdrop, for the wallpaper, for the Facebook page. Linda found a real nice photo that didn't have copyrights or or anything attached to it. So, if you've looked at the Facebook page, if you haven't, take a look at it. If you have a different idea for a photo or some idea, are we just going to put VORCAC up there, or take a look at it and see what you think. So to get a broad coverage, we're using all the venues that we can, and Linda's graciously helping with the mechanics of that. Dennis got Next Door Glenmore to post for us, and now we can have them just make a reference or click a link to the Facebook page where the newsletter will be held as well. So we're trying to get as broad a coverage as we can, and that's another thing that Facebook can do for us. And it's all free. At the bottom of each newsletter, there will be a boilerplate, and Dottie wrote most of that. It's the contacts for Donna and Fred. Hi, Fred. Nice to meet you.
You're not asleep. That's good.
Well, thanks.
Because, the idea is to make things easy for engaging. We want people to be informed. We want people to know where they go to get the information. And so we want to make it easy. we want them to be able to click a link and get right to VORCAC on the Albemarle website, which will help them learn that there's an Albemarle website out there and all the wonderful things that you can find on there. You can get lost for days on that. How to sign up, and then by law, they have to be able to unsubscribe. So Linda has found a format. Linda, what's it called?
Substack.
Substack. I actually got something from them. You are the first one that mentioned that one to me. And those things, she's got a format that we can just plug things in. It seems to be accepting our graphics really nicely, and it's already set up where you can opt out, which, like I say, by law, we have to be able to do.
And it also gives us a website.
Oh, it does.
Yes.
Okay. More fun and games for free. Linda,
how many people are on the distribution list?
1,003.
How many?
1,003.
So does that include Rivanna Village?
It includes the list that you
Grandmore?
sent me, and it includes the GCA, what,
Yes,
Glenmore group,
yeah.
and the Running Deer people.
So it does not include Rivanna Village.
other than a few random names, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
But we can
Rivanna-
rely on Substack. There's a share button in all the emails that it sends out. So if people in Rivanna Village could share it with their neighbors, then they could get signed up.
Well, and we do have that that group of younger than me people who are mothers that Dottie came across them. And they said that they would share it on their website. They have a whole thing going on with all young people in Rivanna Village and here. And
A group of mothers who share babysitting and rides and things like that, and we just happened to run into them at the club. And they said they would gladly share their list.
so that
would be great. I could add that to what we've already got.
Yeah, well, you've already got the person who said that she would share it with the group. The group said you can share it with the group, but don't sign us up we'll sign up on our own. So when she's sharing it,
Okay.
it says, if you want to get it yourself, click here. I'm hoping that we'll get people to click there. And Linda, we didn't talk about Substack having metrics to be able to tell us about opens and.
Oh, yeah, they've got all that.
Okay, so we'll be able to track how well we're doing, which is always nice.
I've been concerned about the fact that we really don't have Rivanna Village involved as of yet. And we've been unsuccessful in obtaining the email addresses of those in Rivanna Village.
Mm-hmm.
Nest Realty is the entity that I guess has control of those emails. And they have not been responding to us.
I'll work on that.
Say again?
I'll work on that.
Okay,
They have, Rivanna Village has a homeowners association, which until they sell a certain percent, it'll be the developers. What about that?
yes, but the developers, we went through that, and developers, it came down to Nest Realty. Developers didn't really want to get involved in that much. So it's Nest Realty. I would really think it'd be great if if you guys could go to Nest Realty and explain to them what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Get those people involved and get those email addresses or get them to agree to release those. Then we'd have direct access.
Well, getting this newsletter together and finding a format to send it out and getting everything into it was totally consuming right now. And we wanted to make sure we had a product to put out before we
Sure.
went there, but that's next on the list.
Sure, great.
We'll
I appreciate that.
be hitting that up soon here. So first of all, I will ask our Fred and Donna if you're okay with us publishing your addresses in there in the newsletter.
Oh, absolutely.
email.
My county, yeah, absolutely. My county email.
Your county email as it was last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no change.
What-
And the same for me.
This
What-
is
what
not a
is-
time I want to just do it and ask permission later. so.
Fred, what is your email? What is your
F-
email address? What
it's
is your
F-
email address?
FMISSEL@albemarle.org.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
And then I think the next most important thing is the disclosure that I wrote at the beginning of the newsletter at the top. I'm not sure if you all read it. Some people wrote some information back and suggestions, and I really, really appreciate your doing that, and talking about it now is fine too. I didn't know if that was sufficient or whether we want to have an attorney look at it. Do we need to have an attorney look at it? Because again, we're not representing, but then sometimes maybe we do. Sometimes, Dennis, when we were looking at Breezy Hill and trying to get information out, was that all just information, or were we trying to create an opinion?
I think what you're trying to do is get information out. And I see no problem in going in that direction. We're not trying to take a position, as you stated, in all of this. It's just trying to get the residents educated.
Right.
And so
But I think it
don't-
needs to be clear that it isn't, we're not publishing an opinion, we're just giving information. And that's why I thought about coming up with a disclaimer.
Well, my feeling is that the verbiage itself will speak for itself. But I need to hear from other people in the committee.
No,
I
don't
just
think we
have
need
to
a
ask
disclaimer.
Paula, I don't have this newsletter. How, did you send it to everyone on the committee, or I didn't know anything about this?
Yeah, I sent it to everyone, unless I have. I got your email address from Linda, and I think she pulled it from something that Dennis sent out. that
Jenna
had-
has 2 email addresses. Don't use the iCloud one.
Do not use the iCloud.
Could you give me the right one?
It's Ginna, Ginna, Boyle, B for boy, Oyle, Kelly, Kelly, the number 8 at hotmail.com. That's the one I look at every day. I'm sorry, I'm just getting over COVID and I've been out of it for like.
No
12
problem. I will send, I'll send it out to you there, because I think I have
Thank
2 or 3 email addresses for Dennis, and when he didn't answer, I knew it wasn't because he wasn't answering me. I knew I had sent it to the wrong place, but
Thank you.
I got it right when I sent you the copy, right? So to Dennis's point, any other input on the,
Anyone else have any opinions as to whether we need an attorney's opinion on this?
I don't think we do.
No, I don't think we even need to have that.
If we
A
do, we'll
disclaimer.
find out, won't we?
you mean the disclaimer or an attorney?
No, I
Oh.
don't think we need either one. We're just giving out
Yeah.
information. No, I don't think we need to bother with it.
Okay, because I tried to make sure that everything was just information and not.
Sure.
And there's a lot of links, if you noticed, because everything is documented.
Yeah,
And what I found with the first newsletter, it seemed very short until you opened it on your phone. And then it went on and on and on. And this one will too, because of the pictures, but I think the pictures speak so loudly. There aren't a lot of words. And if you want to know more, like Neil said, it's deep, it goes deep. And Neil, I wanted to follow up on your comment. I almost felt like you were saying you have to go too deep to find some things.
Neil,
You're muted.
Neil still there?
Neil, unmute yourself.
Neil left.
There you
All right.
are.
Here we are. Sorry. Yeah, I think that I think it's a great document. You know, I think you need to make it clear at the beginning that it's, you know, kind of a missing middle 101 on a sort of a national scale or something, not local. I think that this, it starts out with the definition of the original definition of missing middle that the people who originally coined the term had, and it makes it kind of an optimistic spin on missing middle, which, I think when you compare it to the counties, what they're calling that future land use category that they've got, it really isn't quite the same, and so, we need, this missing middle here, the definition in here, we need to make it clear that this is sort of the history of and nationally the whole thing, but it's not necessarily what the county is doing,
Yeah, and the
And
county and the city came in, after this one was written. So then I thought, oh no, is this the next newsletter or should that go in this newsletter?
Well, yeah, it's not, you got to distinguish it somehow from the city. I would like to, I had some thoughts about that missing middle stuff from the last meeting months ago. And I would like to speak to that a little bit, which is related to this, but it's not, but you should go on and we should finish this discussion, I guess.
I think that my part of the discussion is finished with you when you're finished.
Are your comments directed to Paula's subcommittee issuing something on the missing middle? Or would you
Not directly, I guess. I was just, so that discussion we had about the missing middle stuff, it seems to me, I mean, as I understand it, we've got this new category, land use category, that the county, and they've put it in Crozet in their master plan in some areas. And Rick seemed to think of it as a category that would be overlaid on existing neighborhoods. And we, we're mostly, I mean, our experience has mostly been that a developer would buy a fairly large piece of relatively undeveloped land and plan the whole thing and get it approved as a whole planned unit. Whereas if you layer the middle density thing over an existing land use thing, are you then saying, so what happens then if you've got like a neighborhood of, for example, single family houses on 1 acre lots, that each homeowner might then apply for a new zoning for their 1 acre, and the person next door at some other time might apply for a different zoning for their 1 acre?
That seems to be the way Charlottesville, that
It's going.
if I find this article again, I'll send it to everybody.
Yeah.
They've come up with 3 residential zoning options, and they're not R1, R2. The first is general residential, which is up to 3 houses, and they call it per unit. So I'm interpreting unit to be my lot. And if I wanted to divide my house into 3 residences, I could do
Yeah.
that. And the next one is like up to 8 or something, 8 or 9. And then the next is 14.
Are there specific zoning category, zoning, whatever they are, zonings for that in the county? Is there specific zonings that match up to this middle density residential land use category?
In Crozet, they created in Crozet a density range which would accommodate missing middle. And so they took an area and decided that that's what would be zoned. And so in Charlottesville, for example, on Rugby Road, where you have 3-4 acre estates, they're considering changing that to R3, R4, R12, whatever. They're considering rezoning that. Let's just go to Village Rivanna. Let's go to us. We have 100 acres that are occupied by existing owners on large tracts that could be developed or rezoned when those lots are sold. Rick has said that the chances of that happening are not very possible, they're not going to be done really reality because they're far away from amenities that people living in those missing middle developments would have access to. That it's more an infill type of development that's in cities or heavily developed regions. So
That was the intention.
when you have, and Betsy disagrees, duly noted.
No, all I said was that was the original intention, urban infill.
Well, we don't know. We don't, and the answer is we don't know. So really what we're getting down to is Paula's and Dottie's newsletter.
Well,
Which just
let me-
informs people about what it is without getting into what the possibilities are. They're just trying to tell people in our community what missing middle is. And go no further. And that's all we should be involved in at this point. That's all a discussion should be about at this point. Because we'll get into the weeds if we start discussing what the implications are for Village of Rivanna. We don't know.
Well, and I think using this as an introduction as to what missing middle is, because it's a hot topic right now and our county is
Right.
discussing it, and I'll probably be having a discussion with Fred about it at some point. But, we have a question section, and as questions come in, we'll direct them to the appropriate people to answer those questions. And if I don't know, I'll throw them out to you and ask you guys to tell me who the heck are we supposed to send this question to?
Right.
There might be a follow-up article, and it might be because people are asking more specifics about Albemarle County, and we might have some facts to tell them at that point. But I'm kind of trying to stick with just the facts, ma'am.
When do you think you'd be able to distribute this? When do you think you'll be able to go?
Pretty soon, huh?
What's pretty soon?
In a week?
In a week.
Okay. When do you agree?
I'm
You
sorry.
agree in a week?
I think we can probably do that.
Okay.
And now I have a question for staff if they're out there, or maybe Donna can answer it for me. So Dottie has been helping by doing some of the writing, but I've more been working with Linda because we have to do that to be able to put the thing together, to actually mechanically do that. So does that count as 3 people on a committee? Do we have to make some kind of a change, or is Linda the communications
What
mechanic?
kind of change are you talking about?
If three of
Pardon
you,
Oh, on the committee, because I can only have one other person on the committee.
if the three of you are either meeting at the same time or engaged in continuous communications, then that becomes a meeting.
Let me give you exactly what's happening so that because I worry about this. I talk with Dottie and meet with Dottie, and we talk about the actual writing and content. And then Dottie has not spoken with Linda. I speak with Linda once the content is ready on how to put it into the mechanism to send it out.
You're fine. I had nothing to do with the missing middle. Paul and I met once. We talked about different things, and she wrote what she wrote. She talked to Linda. Linda's our tech whiz, so we need her. We need her involved. And I have had nothing to do with it. So they're just a twosome.
I think that is probably fine. Where the complication would come in is if Paula and Dottie were communicating, and then Paula sent an email to Linda and Dottie at the same time discussing information, and then you are having shared communications coming back. You're having an electronic meeting.
Okay, that's not what we're doing.
No,
That's not
the way
that.
you've described it, I believe is adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we would expect something in about a week.
I
Linda.
have something we need to discuss. Paula and I have been having a discussion back and forth about one of the links in here under the first or, and she's labeled it politics. I don't know if anybody else has actually read it, but I find it inflammatory and condescending and pejorative. And I think that if we put it out there, we're going to lose people. And the thing that we're trying to do by educating them is to bring them into the fold.
I'll bring it up for everybody.
I agree with what Linda said. I also
Linda-
think you
Wait
gotta
a
keep
minute.
this,
Let Paula bring it up.
Linda, which one is it?
It's the one labeled politics.
Okay,
Its title is Woke Cancel Culture Attacks Single Family Zoning.
can somebody put me up to be able to share?
You just share yourself.
Okay, it just popped up.
Okay.
And I guess my other objection is it's written by a developer.
And my thought is just that we're presenting information in different perspectives. That's why, I thought we might need a disclaimer because of Linda's feelings.
I think the other three links cover a number of different perspectives, and that we don't need one that's going to alienate people.
agree.
I mean, it seems like it's good to make the point that it's getting to be a controversial subject and that,
Yes.
Well,
maybe
I'd like
going
to,
off the rails.
I mean, we're not promoting this. This is
I'd
just.
like to kind of remind you all that all of this, we're not interested in housing across the country. We're interested in where we live and how this might affect us.
I think this is just a definition of
Right,
what missing middle is and how it's being applied across the country is the
right.
intent of the.
There are a lot of things, like what you talked about in Charlottesville, that will not happen where we live. What they're doing.
I think what the difficulty is in the heading. When it says woke cancel culture attacks single family zoning. It's sort of creating a controversial
Right,
position.
Right,
And
and that's what missing middle is.
I understand, but I think what we want to do is present missing middle and let people judge for themselves, whether they
Right.
like it or not.
That's why we're not commenting on it. We're just presenting perspectives.
I hear you. Linda says that she thinks this thing is there an alternative article you have which promotes it?
Well, the other three seem to be, they're perfectly fine,
yeah.
and they're on both sides.
If they're on both sides, there's no problem up to me.
But this one is just,
Well,
I mean, this is ripe for people to misinterpret it.
All right,
Right,
yeah.
agreed.
take a vote.
yeah. What do we think? Dottie, what do you think?
I
Take it
take
out,
this-
keep it in.
Out,
Betsy?
I see it as political too.
You say out.
That's what I labeled it, was political.
I'm sure you did.
Gina?
It doesn't bother me at all, but
Okay.
I
2 to
think people
1.
should be able to think for themselves.
Okay, Neil?
I mean, I think, you know, if you could find a substitute that's less sensational, that would be good. If you wanted to have it in there, you'd have to really make it clear that this was just an example of what some people are saying, you know, not what we're saying.
That's why I put the disclaimer at the
Or
top.
take it out.
I think it
Um,
would be safer to take it out.
Yes,
Linda wants it out. So the committee agrees at this point, take it out. That's what the majority is saying. Right?
yes.
Take it out.
Thank you.
I don't think it's gonna make much difference.
There's plenty of information
Well,
there.
hopefully people click in, or at least one of them.
Our goal is to have enough people read the darn thing.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there any more on this that you'd like to discuss before we get to old and new business?
Neil, did we get all your comments?
Well, I was thinking maybe I'm in old business. You know, my comments, I'm talking about the last meeting we had.
All right, let's go to old business. Neil?
So on this subject of this middle density residential land use category, are there does the county have particular zoning, whatever they are, zoning categories that are line up with this residential land use, or does all sorts of different zonings come into play when you've got an area that's in the middle density residential land use?
Well, Neil, read the Crozet master plan.
Right.
That's kind of the county's initial foray into including
Right.
middle density in master plans. Let's see what you think.
So are there particular zoning categories
There,
expressed in there?
yeah, there are.
Yes.
There are certain densities thrust into it.
Wasn't it 12 to 18, Betsy?
Well, I think they reduced that. I think it was 8 to 12. You know, honestly, I'm not sure quite where that ended up, but I know there was a great deal of controversy about
Your
it.
answer,
Maybe
the answer,
Cory.
Neil.
Cory, do you know?
The answer is
middle
that,
density,
go ahead.
Crozet master
Cory?
plan, what that density range that allowed.
So the Crozet Master Plan Middle Density Residential category is 6 to 12 units per acre, but then up to 18 units per acre with certain middle density and affordable housing provisions.
So you layer this middle density residential land use over an existing neighborhood, which might have single, you know, lots, like a 1 acre lot with a single family home on. And it's now in an area, a land use, middle density residential land use thing. So does that mean like one homeowner who owns 1 acre might have the person on next door to him might apply for some zoning that had up to 18 units on his acre, and the person on the other side might have a mother-in-law apartment, and the person on, you know, the rest of them might all have these big 18 unit apartment buildings? Or I mean, that they would be in different zoning categories, or would they be in the same zone?
That's a good question.
It would be up to the property owner to recommend, you know, to choose what they wanted to apply to build. So they
So each unit,
for something within that range or above or below if they wanted. So it functions the same as any of the other future land use categories. So it's just taken into consideration if there's a rezoning request to increase density.
That's
So
kind
you're saying Neil could do that with his land.
I can't get my screen back up, but so
Well,
it
so
seems to
far it's
me,
only been applied in Crozet as a future land use category.
it seems to me that it's a way broad category that, you know, is basically let's just punt and not do planning category, whatever, can do anything in this zone. That to say it's about, I mean, Rick seemed to think it was about having a mother-in-law apartment, and that's a very different thing than having, 18 units an acre or something. I mean, it's like, and the language, which I, if you give me back my screen, how do I get my screen back? The language in the county's land, middle density land use category thing says that it would be scale would be consistent. Housing types that are in scale with single family neighborhoods. But then it says height and massing up to 3 stories and maximum residential building footprint 12,000 square feet. So 12,000 square feet is like, could be 120 feet by 100 feet. It could be 3 stories high. So that's hardly in scale with, a single family home. It seems like, it seems like a, way too broad a category. I mean, you're basically giving up on planning, as far as I can tell. That's just my comment.
Well, Neil, we are an old business and new business.
Right.
And I'm not sure what area you're in.
I'm in old business because this was the last subject of the last meeting. But is there any response to that? I've got another point, unrelated point to also discuss.
Dennis, could I make a couple of comments, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to recognize that not all development areas are equal. So the city of Charlottesville is different than the Albemarle County urban ring, is different from Crozet, is different from the village of Rivanna. And that's why you'll see a different example in terms of the desire to have affordable housing is not pushed in the village of Rivanna because we don't have transportation or other amenities that would support the individuals who would be looking for affordable housing. Similarly, and while middle density housing is relatively new in our area, that's much more likely to be in the very densely populated areas where you do have amenities and walkability. And so, I'm one supervisor. I cannot speak for the board in this instance. I don't really see affordable housing or middle density as an issue for any foreseeable time in the village of Rivanna. Now, if our population of the county continues to grow, if more pressures are placed upon the county, we have to look at a lot of different things. We have to look beyond simply infill in the 5% of our development areas. And at some point in time, we very likely will have to look at things like expanding. You can only infill so much and go up so high. But for the time being, I really don't see that is a significant concern for your development area. It becomes a little more close to home in Crozet. Crozet had the largest growth in our population over the last decade. It clearly is an issue in our urban ring. So I appreciate, your interest in questions, but I don't really, there's no businesses, there's no shops, there's none of those other sort of things in the village of Rivanna that are likely to, I can tell you right now, I would not support movement towards affordable housing or increasing density in your area. As you know, I voted against, Breezy Hill. I voted against the gas station at Black Cat Road. But can I say that one day in the future that may not be a pressure? No, I can't say that. It all depends on what happens overall in the economy, in our population. And so what we're trying to do, at least my approach, is within reason to infill as much as possible in the development area so that we can push off as long as possible the pressures that we may one day face in the rural, less developed areas.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks.
You have no objection, though, to an informative insert in our newsletter to let people know about middle density.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I see advantages that middle density will offer in the places where it does go in. But that does not, again, I do not see every development area as being, homogeneous with every other development area. They're not.
Thank you.
I understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting a different impression from Charles Rapp. I'm getting the impression that he'd like to see what applies in one development area be universal to all of them.
Well, I've not spoken with Charles Rapp about it. I do know that the Board of Supervisors makes the ultimate decision. I do think that there has to be some degree of consistency around the county, but as I look at the different development areas, I see the village of Rivanna as being very different than the other development areas.
Thank you. I agree with you.
I agree too, but it does seem like a significant number of supervisors, seem to think of let's just put as much density as we can into whatever development area we can. That seems to be where the thinking is.
Well,
Here's another question about, this is pretty hypothetical, but
Excuse me for a minute, Neil. I'm going to take a 2-minute intermission as the chairman to return to I have some personal business, and you keep talking, okay?
okay. Like if you're if there's a middle density residential land use area, you're in that, how does it affect the tax assessments? Do the tax assessors take this into consideration?
Well, the tax assessments are largely based upon fair market value of the property. And so what they would look at is, what have been the comparable sales, much like a realtor will do when you're looking to purchase a piece of property. And Peter Lynch, who is our assessor, has done an incredible job of accuracy on assessing what the market value is of the property, and that's what the assessment is based on.
So if you were in a middle density residential land use, area where the potential existed for putting, 12, 18 units on your formerly single house lot, that could potentially increase your tax assessment.
I'm not an assessor. I'm not a realtor. I don't do property evaluations. I can't tell you how speculative that would affect an assessment. I think it's what the actual market value is.
The same things ran through my mind, Neil. Thanks for asking them.
I mean, that seems like it would create tremendous pressure for developers to buy up houses and develop them.
Anything else, Neil?
What are we on? We're on new and old business?
Old business.
Okay. Well, here's an old business, which is also a new business. On the, there's this, for Breezy Hill, there's a site review thing and coming up, going on. And last year, when Breezy Hill, when they were applying for the 80 unit version, which is what was approved, there was a comment by the guy from the zoning department, that they had the plan of where the lots and roads would be, and they had a grading plan, but they didn't combine the two. But it looked to him like some lots would be on steep slopes, which they were creating when they built, cut and filled for putting in roads and stuff, and that was inappropriate, couldn't be done, shouldn't be done. So he asked them to put in language saying they wouldn't do that, which they did. They put that language in the application. Now there's a site review plan which has the grading plan and the site plan with the lots combined, and they have not changed the two. It looks to me like indeed there are lots, on these steep slopes, including these steep slopes, which apparently they shouldn't be doing. And I mean, that doesn't look to me like that guy, there is even a zoning person on the site review committee. I mean, is this normal that they agree to do something in the application stage and then they don't do it in the site review stage? And then does it normally get worked out? Or do I need to object to the, we need to object? Maybe Tori knows, I don't know.
Could you address that?
Who?
I mean, I would think that if there was an agreement as part of the application, that would be, binding in the absence of, I don't know what the exceptions to that would be.
Yeah, I would want to see the language. If it's something that's on the application plan, then I would think that would be part of the review. But I, again, hesitate to comment without being the reviewer or having seen the specific language. I think I could reach out to the planner, who is the lead reviewer on the project.
Neil, I would suggest that you may want to provide Tori with the specific language so she understands what you're objecting to.
Okay. I
And
mean, you don't want to do that now, do you? I could probably. do it.
no, you don't want to do it now, but after this meeting.
Yeah,
And Tori, would you look into it if Neil provides you with specifics on this?
I can.
Good. Okay. Anything else, Neil?
no, I think that's, oh, well, yeah, okay, no.
Does anybody else have any old business? Okay, I have some old business. Tori, I requested that Kevin appear before the committee to discuss with us certain items containing transportation, which we need in order to proceed with our master plan. I have not received any dates. Kevin said that he couldn't appear in January, but he would provide new dates. I have emailed you saying where are the dates, and I haven't gotten any response. What's the deal?
Yes, I have good news. It looks like Kevin should be able to come out to the March meeting. So I need to
Excellent.
confirm that. It's not 100% confirmed, but it looks like that will be doable.
Very good. Donna, let me go to my thing I've been plaguing you with on the Albemarle County Code versus the comprehensive plan. I need to have some kind of an update as to whether the county is addressing the disparity between what the comprehensive plan recommends and combining the master plan, the comprehensive plan language for net density with the Albemarle County Code. We've talked about this before. Has there been any progress?
I can't give you any specific answer on that. I do know that that is part of what I believe the county attorney's office has been working on, but I can't tell you, I cannot give you a status on where it is.
Can you tell me whether it be appropriate to bring this up when the committee is dealing with the update to the comprehensive plan? Would that be the
Yes.
time?
That would be, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. There's one thing. How about let's go to anything more in old business? Let's go to new business. Linda has posted to the committee the information from VDOT regarding proposed changes in two areas on Route 250 and the intersection with Route 22,
Yeah.
where they propose and I can't remember the name. It's an offset left turn to reduce accidents of cars coming east on 250 and then going through the flashing yellow light to turn on to 22. Been a number of accidents. The second item is They suggest, and if you look at what Linda's provided, you can see this displaced left turn, which will provide a change to that and be more safe. The second thing is they're trying to get community involvement. They're trying to get community response to these things right now. The second thing is they're proposing a roundabout at the intersection between Milton Road and 250 instead of the light, which I think would be a disaster. And I've already informed of that because it would really tie up traffic. But that's one thing that I think you guys should really be addressing. Look at it and answer the survey and give your opinions of it.
Do you want that in the newsletter?
No, not at this point. Okay,
Well, it's a February 15th deadline, so
yeah,
gotta do it fast.
right. Okay. Let's go now. Fred, would you like to introduce yourself as planning commissioner and say some things to us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me tonight. And it's really an honor to get to meet each one of you. And I very much look forward to working with each one of you. I've been in this area for 36 years, which is hard for me to believe. I came here as a student. I went to the architecture school. I have degrees in architecture and urban planning. I worked for 10 years with a local civil engineering company, did a lot of site plans, did a lot of residential development designs under the heading of civil engineering, and have really gotten to know the county process, I think, fairly well. If I were to say I'm an expert in anything, it's probably that. It's probably the county process and the site plan, everything from sort of the concept all the way through to the completion of the project. And so if there's ever anything I can do to help you all with that area, I'm happy to. And if there's anything I can do specifically that I don't know, I will get an answer for you. The fact that I've been here for 36 years means I've seen a lot of change, as you all have as well. And I've been on the Architectural Review Board for 12 years, just rolled off of that to become a planning commissioner, and very dedicated to Albemarle County and to working with you all and other citizens to make this a great place to continue to live. I have two daughters and an awesome wife, and they're both married. One of them lives in Charlottesville, one of them lives in Northern Virginia. Again, my email address, as you heard, was fmissile@albemarle.org, and please don't hesitate to reach out. Are there any questions you have for me?
Well, I want to say thank you, Fred. Welcome. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you. I was wondering what part of Scottsville district you live in.
Well, it's interesting. I actually don't live in the Scottsville district. I live in North Garden on Plank Road, right off of Plank Road. But it's not a requirement for me to live in the district that I'm serving. So I'm very close to Scottsville. I know Scottsville very well and the district well. I'm still learning a lot in that area, but we'll continue to do so. I live 3 miles from Dr. Ho's.
We would welcome in the future taking you through a little tour through the village of Rivanna so you can get to understand our area more. And
I would like that.
Contact
Thank you.
about that. Okay,
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
great. Donna, do you have anything to report, Fred?
Yes, thank you,
Brand new,
Dennis.
so I guess not. Donna?
Yeah, thanks. And I want to express my appreciation to Fred for stepping up and agreeing to serve as the planning commissioner. As you heard from his background, I don't think we could be more fortunate with the expertise and knowledge that he brings to the position. And I think he'll be a tremendous asset, even though he lives just on the other side of the street between Scottsville and Samuel Miller. So I have 3 things to bring up. The first one has to do with redistricting. As you know, the Virginia Supreme Court on December 27th issued a final order on redistricting for House of Representatives and for the State Senate and the House of Delegates. The county is now at the very beginning phases of redistricting our magisterial districts. As Jake Washburn described it, if you can think of Goldilocks, where 2 are too hot, 2 too cold, and 2 in the middle. It's either Jack Jewett or Rio, I can't remember, I apologize. And Whitehall grew above average. Samuel Miller and Scottsville grew below average. Rivanna and either Jack Jewett or Rio kind of stayed in the middle. So there are 3 proposals that have been offered by the electoral board. They're all relatively minor in terms of their impact on the Scottsville magisterial district, but I would encourage you to go to the county website and look at the 3 proposals. The 45-day comment or review period has commenced. We will have a public hearing on March 2nd, and then the Board of Supervisors will issue a decision on March 23rd. I do invite and encourage your input onto those because they do affect up near the Stone Robinson Magistrate Precinct. And so it is important that we get your inputs. The boundary line will largely remain I-64 on the north and Virginia 20 Scottsville Road to the west, but there are some tweaks in there that would slightly change the district. Now, one of the things that ties in with redistricting is the Goldman v. Brink court case that's currently before the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. That lawsuit was filed in June or July last year after it was evident that that Virginia would not complete its redistricting in time for the 2021 election. And the objective of that lawsuit is to require us to have House of Delegates elections in 2021, 2022, and again in 2023. Just on January 28th, the latest action was taken on the court where the defendants, which is the state, objected to the plaintiff being able to add additional documents for the court to review. It's really sort of anyone's guess right now whether that court decision will come down and tell us we have to have a House of Delegates race this year, or whether they'll let us wait and do it in 2023. So, you know, watch this space, as they say. We could end up having House of Delegate races 3 years in a row. And again, March 2nd will be a public hearing, and March 23rd will be the decision. Those are not necessarily regular Board of Supervisor meetings, but we do have scheduled budget meetings, which leads into the second topic. We will start to get our presentation from county staff at our board meeting next week. We look at a number of things. Obviously, everyone is aware that the county had an 8.4 average increase in assessments, and the Scottsville Magisterial District had the highest of 11.3, I believe. So what we are looking at is a number of things, and those things are both to expand the diversity of the revenue stream of the county. 19 years ago, 60% of county revenues came from real estate taxes. Today, it's 68%. We need to reduce our reliance on real estate taxes, and there are a number of ways that we could look to do that. Everything from lowering the tax rate to increasing other taxes. I mean, the county staff on that next week. One of the real wild cards out there, though, is that the Republicans in the House of Delegates and the governor are looking to, I've got a note that I'm unstable on my connection, so I'm going to mute my camera. They've proposed eliminating the county's ability to tax anything other than real estate and personal property. That would be transient occupancy taxes, meals taxes, cigarette taxes. And we really need those taxes to exist for us to have any chance of being able to lower the tax burden from real estate and personal property taxes. And I lived in Virginia Beach for 18 years and loved tourists because their tax dollars funded so many things for the city of Virginia Beach. And frankly, we are a destination and would like to see our tourists pay a little more of the taxes here and try to relieve the burden to some degree on our community members. We have a number of budget meetings coming up over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So again, watch this space. At our board meeting last week, the biggest development issue was what was identified as 1805 Avon Street, which is a narrow 3.627 acres that was approved for 85 units. It's essentially parallel and adjacent to Avinity. And as you know, that triangle between Avon Street, Scottsville Road, and I-64 is a development area. It will be densely developed. The biggest questions that came up are the impact on schools because Mountain View is already over capacity. Our CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, does provide for the funding of 2 additional schools, in addition to expansion of schools. And so that particular development was not identified as bringing in a large number of additional students because it will mostly be one-bedroom and efficiencies, but every development does increase the pressure on the schools. So that's something we have to look at. And the board also approved for me as the chair to sign a letter to the State Corporation Committee with regard to the problems we've continued to have with CenturyLink. Being in with VACO Friday and Saturday in Richmond for chair, vice chair of boards of supervisors. And we have about a half dozen other counties. Well, I guess maybe it's a total of about half dozen that are all kind of working somewhat in concert, albeit independently, to ensure that we get the loudest voice possibly heard before the SCC to try and get some requirements on CenturyLink as they sell their copper line DSL lines to Brightspeed, the acquiring entity, to ensure that those lines are not abandoned, either in fact or legally, and that they are required to both invest in the infrastructure and maintain those as actually working systems, which they have largely not been, in order to ensure both internet and telephony. I've never heard that phrase before here. I would just say telephone service. And so those are really the big things that we've got going on right now. So thank you, Dennis. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Donna. Are there any questions for Donna?
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Okay. At this point, we're ready to adjourn unless there's some other new business that anyone wants to bring up.
I have one thing.
Go ahead, Linda.
UVA beat Duke at
Oh,
Duke,
yeah.
69 to 68.
Come on.
Really?
You
Terrible.
just got a
Really?
text.
That is
Yeah.
awful.
One thing I forgot to do at the start of the meeting. Everyone has looked at the minutes that Dottie has submitted. I need a vote as to whether we will approve the minutes or not. All in favor of approving the minutes from last meeting, raise your hand. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Your assignment for next month, excuse me, is look at chapter 1 of the master plan, pages 8 to 13. We will wrap up the first 7 pages. I will attempt to provide you with the first 7 pages as amended so far.
Okay.
And then you can look that over, and we will go on and make sure we agree on that, and then proceed to pages 8 to 13.
When is the next meeting?
It will be 1 month from now in March. It's usually the first Monday. Tori, does that look like it's going to be a go?
It is. I think it's usually the second Monday.
Sorry, second Monday.
Just got moved up. But also Kevin should be attending for
What
transportation.
date would that be, Tori?
So it should be,
Probably the 7th.
Second Monday is the 14th,
yeah, that looks right.
the 14th.
Okay. Very good. I need a motion to adjourn,
So
moved.
Moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yes,
Bye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.
thank you.